And if you can go deep into this spiritual vision of reality, you could never hurt or kill another human being ever. Much less allow 40,000 kids to die every day of starvation, or 35 wars to continue, or 25,000 nuclear weapons to continue in your name with your money. So nonviolence for me is not a tactic or a strategy. It's a way of life. And it's not passive. It's challenging, active, provocative, troublemaking. It's like active love and truth that we're going to give our whole lives, for the rest of our lives, for our sisters and brothers around the planet, pursuing the truth of our common humanity, persistently reconciling with everyone, disarming our hearts, disarming the world, resisting systemic evil and injustice against any human being for the rest of our lives, in love with the whole human family, with one catch. And it's a doozy. There is no cause, however noble, for which we will support the taking of a single human life. Gets worse. Not only that, not only are we not going to kill or be involved in the killing of other people, like Dr. King, we are willing to be killed in this pursuit of justice and peace. Not only are we not going to inflict further violence on our sisters and brothers, we are willing to accept violence, to suffer in the struggle for justice and peace. Are you ready? Without a trace of the desire to retaliate. Willingly giving our lives in love for the whole human race, for justice and peace. Dr. King said this is the heart of peacemaking. And we all have to go deep into it. Gandhi talks about nonviolence as a power, more powerful than all the nuclear weapons combined. Like when Edison discovered electricity, he was just tapping into it, he was just beginning to understand the power of electricity. He said nonviolence is infinitely more powerful. We're just beginning to tap into it. So it begins in our hearts, where we renounce all the wars and nuclear weapons, the roots of that inside us, the violence inside us. And we're going to be nonviolent to our sisters and our brothers, mother and our father, children, neighbors, everybody in Bethlehem, everybody in our schools, everybody even in the church, everybody around the whole world. And Gandhi speaks of it as a methodology where we can channel this power of nonviolence, this act of love and pursuit of the truth of our common humanity, even to the point where we're willing to suffer as we insist on it, so that the scales fall from the eyes of our opponent, and we recognize our common humanity and are reconciled, and justice comes. When you channel this as a method, you can bring down the British Empire nonviolently, and they'll leave as friends. Or Dr. King will go into Birmingham and say, go ahead, throw me into jail, and you bring down the segregation laws. Or the million people taking to the streets in Manila and getting the dictator, Marcos, to leave, and the people power movement, or Archbishop Tutu, or all the greats, in South Africa, all the great stories we've been hearing about. I just think nonviolence works. It just has not been tried that much. But most of the world at this moment, according to Walter Wink, in the last 10 years, he's done studies on this, and he says 2/3 of the human race is actively engaged right now in nonviolent struggle. This is not happening in the United States by and large, and we're not going to hear about it. But this is where the good stuff is. Now, I had the privilege and fun of working at the Fellowship of Reconciliation. It was an interfaith group involved for nonviolence for 80, 90 years. And I met all the religious peace activists from all different religions. And I had read about it all, but to meet hundreds of them within each religion, I found from personal relationships and encounters that nonviolence is the common ground, the base, I would submit, the heart of every major religion. So that Judaism, for example, has a spectacular vision of shalom, and the Holy Prophet comes along and says, someday these people are going to come along and beat their swords into plowshares and never study war again. Or Islam, the very word means peace. There's hundreds of members of the Muslim Peace Fellowship, totally radically committed to nonviolence, as Muslims, telling me this is what it means to be a Muslim, engaged in stopping the war in Iraq. And they'll never get publicity. But, they're saying this is the heart of Islam. Or, Hinduism exemplified by Mahatma Gandhi. He's saying Hinduism is about active nonviolence and selfless service for the human race. And Buddhism, they're saying we're going to be compassionate to all living beings. No, we're not even going to stop there. We're going to be compassionate to the earth, and the rocks, and the air, and the sky. Nonhan is saying we're going to be so peaceful and mindful and centered, we're going to be aware of every single breath we breathe in. Deep nonviolence here. And he's saying we're going to breathe in peace and breathe out peace upon one another. But I know this is going to be rough, but I would just like to submit for a minute the very possibility that even Christianity is about nonviolence. So Gandhi comes along and says, Jesus is the most radical person of nonviolence in the history of the world. He's kind of saying extraordinary things about Jesus. And you go, wow. And then he says, unfortunately, the only people on the whole planet who don't know that Jesus was nonviolent are Christians. I just feel I have to say something about this because of what's happening in the churches these days. I submit it's the only thing you can say for sure about the life of Jesus. And therefore about Christianity. That he was radically, challenging, actively, provocatively, illegally nonviolent. And so he's saying things like, love your neighbor, love one another, love God, be as compassionate as God, forgive 77 times, 7 times, hunger and thirst for justice, take up the cross, blessed are the peacemakers, astonishing things. And he's organizing these poor, beat-up people, and he turns like Gandhi in the Salt March, and he heads to Jerusalem on this campaign of active nonviolence, a very sophisticated march where he walks into the temple and confronts systemic injustice, turning over the tables of the money changers in an act of peaceful, nonviolent civil disobedience. Doesn't hurt anybody, kill anybody, or drop any nuclear bombs. And does a classic act like all we do in our groups, a sit-in. And for this, he's arrested and killed. And, so this is the life of him that Christians are supposed to be following. And, but you're saying there, well, John, or a lot of people say to me, to you and us, well, this is really nice stuff, nonviolence and all that. You gotta, some wars are justified. These are, all the big argument now, including Bush on Thursday at the Vatican. I don't know if you read that in the New York Times. The incredible quote. I just wish, George W. Bush Sr. said, I just wish I had more time with John Paul to talk about the just war and how wars really are just. The empire and emperors are blind and can never comprehend the nonviolence of Jesus. But okay, you're saying I'm a Christian, but I believe in just war theory. I say, okay, there's one point where you're right. Peter is right. He doesn't act in troublemaking civil disobedience in the Garden of Gethsemane. What does Peter do? Grabs the sword, and he starts swinging, chopping off the ear of the soldier and all. Justified violence. Peter's right. Our job is to protect the holy guy. That's the role of the disciples, to protect the master, right? And so if there was ever a moment when violence is justified, that's it, right? And the word comes down, the commandment comes down, put down the sword. And Peter goes, oh my God, God is crazy about nonviolence. They're out of there. And they all run away. And you could talk about the rest of the story about the nonviolence of Jesus refusing to kill, dying on the cross, saying, violence stops here in my body, you're all forgiven, but no more killing. And, God raised from the dead and appears and says, okay, peace be with you, peace be with you, peace be with you. 3 or 4 times he's telling them, now you guys, you all walk the road of nonviolence to your Jerusalems. And that's the Christian journey. So I submit that just war theory has nothing to do with the life of Jesus or Christianity. And we've got to start saying it.